After the disappearance of the 252-stroke back in the late 80s, the American ATV aftermarket manufacturers not only made the sport more competitive, they kept it alive. If it weren't for good old American know-how, the sport of ATV racing probably wouldn't be around today. Back in 2001, American bicycle manufacturer Cannondale released a new line of exotic, high-performance ATVs. While they outperformed anything else on the market at the time, they were overly complex and expensive, making them less obtainable and more difficult to maintain. A few short years later, Cannondale's motorsport budget dried up, and their ATV manufacturing days came to a close. Over the past 4 years, most of the major manufacturers have released high-performance ATVs, all except Polaris. We are surprised that it took the largest ATV manufacturer in America, the land of ATVing, so long to get involved in the 450cc high-performance ranks. For Polaris, the magic year was 2008, the machine, the Outlaw 450 MXR. Now the only thing to find out is, was it worth the wait? The Outlaw 450 MXR was developed in conjunction with, and is nearly identical to, the Polaris Outlaw 525S. The only differences between the machines are their tires, suspension, and motor. Actually, the motor cylinder is different to be specific. Powering the machine is a Ktm engine similar to the one used in the Ktm 450 EXC dirt bike. The liquid-cooled single overhead cam 4-stroke motor measures in at 448 cc's. For use in an ATV chassis, the Ktm motor was reconfigured from its normal 6-speed transmission to a 5-speed with reverse. A hydraulic clutch keeps clutch action smooth and its actuation easy. The engine is sparked to life with electric starting. Fuel is fed to the motor by a Ktm 39mm FCR carburetor. While casual trail riders may prefer fuel injection, riders who are planning on performing a number of motor mods will have the ability to tune their fuel system without purchasing an expensive aftermarket fuel management system. What many riders will need to purchase is a different intake system. The airbox is tiny, and so is the filter, undoubtedly restricting horsepower. The filter's smaller surface area means that it becomes dirtier faster, requiring more frequent maintenance. When reinstalling the filter, be careful as it's difficult to tell if it's seated properly. The Outlaw 450 features high-quality Fox shocks front and rear. Out back, the MXR uses the same Podium X shock utilized on the 525S. It features preload compression and rebound adjustments and delivers 11 inches of wheel travel. The Podium X piggyback-equipped front shocks feature a dual spring setup for progression throughout the travel. They are preload and compression adjustable and provide 10 inches of front wheel travel. The Outlaw 450 MXR's weight is competitively light at 365 pounds. It's 71.5 inches long, 47 inches wide, and 46 inches tall, with a seat height of 32 inches. The smaller tires on the MXR make its measured length and width a bit smaller than the 525S, although its chassis dimensions are actually identical. With Polaris already offering 2 trail or freeride machines, the Outlaw 525S and IRS, we can't help but feel that the MXR should be in the same motocross-ready 49 to 50 inch width range as the Suzuki LTR 450. After all, MXR does stand for motocross, right? Adding to the machine's motocross appeal are Maxxis Razr MX tires at all 4 corners, mounted on spun aluminum wheels. 2610 fronts and 1810-9 rears are perfectly sized for the track, but slightly detract from the machine's trail capabilities by limiting ground clearance. The Outlaw stops with dual hydraulic discs up front and a single hydraulic disc in the rear. The front brakes feature dual piston calipers, and steel braided brake lines were used throughout, giving the Outlaw 450 race-ready brakes. These same brakes worked well on the 525 and should perform even better on the lighter 450. Since we plan on doing some extensive track testing with the MXR, we installed a set of pure Polaris accessory Nerf bars and heel guards. They bolted on easily, as any OEM item should, and improved both safety and appearance. The first time we eased out the clutch on the 450 MXR, we realized that this was a different kind of 450. First off, the motor is competitively fast. It tied for second in drag race times in ATV Sports 2008 7 quad 450cc ATV shootout. What's different is the way that the Ktm power plant makes its power. The motor pulls right off idle and continues to build power throughout the mid-range before it tapers off on top. The Ktm motor produces more usable torque than most other 450s. Trail riders and cross-country racers can lug the motor without the coughing or hesitation that some machines in this class exhibit at lower RPMs. The motor's transition into the mid-range part of the power band is seamless. There's no hitting the power to wear you out or surprise a less experienced rider on the face of a jump. On top, the motor signs off, but not before propelling you toward the front of the pack. The motor is competitive, it just doesn't wear you out as fast as some of the others. The power is ideal for most potential 450 owners. Shifting is predictable, but not as smooth as some of the other machines in the class. Its shifts and false neutrals aren't a problem. It just takes a touch more pressure with your foot to move to the gearbox. The action of the hydraulic clutch is silky smooth and never seems to fade. The first few gears seem well spaced, but the motor tops out quickly in fifth. If you race on wide open tracks, you may want to go down a couple of teeth on the rear sprocket. In the suspension department, the Outlaw was a surprise. The shocks work well in most situations, from aggressive trail riding to motocross action. While we didn't care for the rear shock spring raider valving on the 525S, the rear shock seems to work much better on the 450. Surprising, considering they use the same shock. Perhaps the difference maker was the Outlaw 450's front shocks. We were able to set them up lower in the travel, which helped reduce body roll. Their action is superb on anything from small bumps to big jumps and flat landings. Test rider Aaron Meyer felt that they worked nearly as good as the Fox float shocks he uses on his race machine. In return, the rear shock works pretty well just about everywhere. The only place where the rear end seemed to reach its capabilities was in the whoops, the same place that plagued the 525S. The back end would kick a bit, but it was much more predictable and controllable on the 450. We could charge through the whoops much harder on the 450 than we could on the 525. The superb front shocks work so well that they take some of the load off the back shock, actually making the job easier and its performance better. On hole shots and exiting corners, the Outlaw's front end feels light. This requires you to pay attention to body positioning and clutch control in order to keep the front end planted. On the other hand, the machine feels responsive and makes it easy to lift the front wheels for whoops or water holes on the track. Cornering on the Outlaw 450 is fast and responsive. With its extra inch of width and smaller Maxxis tires, the Outlaw is more stable than the Honda 450R and turns tighter than the YFZ. It's a competitive cornerer compared to most of the class, but it's not as stable as the 49-inch wide LTR 450. If this is an out-of-the-box motocross racer as the name indicates, it needs to be a bit wider. Riders who venture onto both tracks and trails will find its stock width ideal. The Outlaw is a responsive jumper. It's no wonder that the Bomb Squad uses this machine for freestyle. It responds well to rider input in the air, and its predictable power allows you to set the bike up perfectly for takeoffs. The front end is light, but it doesn't come up unexpectedly. Braking performance is superb. The front brakes can be two-fingered, and brake sliding into corners is no problem. Riders of all disciplines will like the Outlaw's brakes. Some of our faster riders complained about the Outlaw's footpeg positioning. Aaron felt that the seat forced him forward, with the foot pegs located behind him, making the transition from sitting to standing more difficult. Additionally, the foot pegs are a tad narrower than we'd like.
I just got done riding the 2008 Polaris Outlaw MXR 450, and this bike is one of the top bikes offered today in the 450 class. It's got really good low-end torque, able to lug it up a lot of the steep long hills in a high gear without having to shift a lot, which is nice for woods riding. Out here on the track, it's coming out of these sharp hairpin corners real good. It goes to the bottom gears real easy coming out. It handles really well. It turns a lot better than most of the stock 450s. They seem to be pretty tippy in stock form, and this one is one of the better ones. It turns really well. It does wheelie pretty easy, but overall I think it's a fairly well-built machine.
In conclusion, Polaris has built a great machine their first year in the high-performance ranks. Its powerhouse KTM motor offers perfect power, strong and super smooth. Its suspension works well in most places, and it's one set of tires away from being a great high-performance trail quad. As far as living up to its name, the MXR is fun on the track. With the addition of the pure Polaris Nerf bars and heel guards, and a kill switch, you can race one at the local level and have some fun. Add a set of A-arms and recalibrate the shocks, and the MXR would truly be race ready. The 2008 Polaris Outlaw 450 MXR is a real threat in the high-performance 450 ranks.